Hello virtual pilots and welcome to the latest Q&A coverage from Microsoft and Asobo for Microsoft Flight Simulator that was hosted on Twitch after the release of Sim Update 3 with Jorg, Sebastian and Martial. As always, we are taking the 90-minute show and deliver it to you in a short and concise way, including the most important topics. So without further ado, let's dive in. They started with Sim Update 3, implementing Obs Mode in Garmin's. This was done and fixed with Sim Update 3 even though we didn't see it in the patch notes. It was confirmed by Martial for the Garmin G1000. Now for the altimeter temperature errors. More precise, that the indicated altitude does not seem to be influenced by temperature at all, we'll get a fix in Sim Update 4. It's a rewrite for the altimeter instrument in the airplane that fixes two issues. One is for the instrument to account for the new ways of calculating pressure in the sim, and second is an integration of the whole temperature instrument error. So we will get a correct pressure altitude, correct temperature deviation, and a more accurate altimeter. A question followed about the ITT behaving incorrectly on the TBM 930. Martial intervened on this one and said it will get also addressed with Sim Update 4, as they will spend more time with the turbines, doing a good pass on them. Then about rounded mountain peaks, Sebastian presented a video talking about the detail applied to the terrain depending on the data being fed in the rendering. The left side representing what we see in the sim when zooming over mountainous terrain, and on the right side is a wireframe view to see the amount of detail that the engine is reproducing. We already seen that they are updating region by region. We got a USA patch, Japan, the UK, and so on, and with each update they are getting more precision. This is continuously improving and has nothing to do with the amount of detail, graphic power or rendering, it's just a data pipeline that is coming from the cloud. Now about the icing effect, being way too excessive also affecting performance and the visual representation being wrong, and the question was if they are aware and doing something about it, and if there could be an option to completely disable the effect. The answer was that at this time the sim has just one layer and one shader for this complex effect. Icing being different from case to case. At this time it's exaggerated and they intend to fix it, and for Sim Update 4 we should get that off switch for this effect as well. Moving on with the new effect system. We saw the contrails, which is the newest addition to the system. Note that it's still its first iteration, and at this time the contrails are not taking in account the wind, something that they want to add in the Sim Update 4. Then will come an improvement to the system, bringing effects to other situations like on landing, depending on the type of terrain that you touch down. Then they talked about Glideslope with a minimum drag speed. In the current version we need to kinda double the solo values to get a realistic ID max. We know about the flaps bug that happened after the UK update and that was fixed, but prior to that Sebastian investigated this issue and this is his explanation.
I've displayed the lift versus drag polar. For the TBM first, and then for the 747, that's the two planes that were mentioned. You need to see that this is without engine drag or anything, it's just the pure aerodynamics. You can see the red line, or the numbers are not super visible, but the minimum, the red line shows really the minimum, the best L over D effect. And it is at a L over D ratio, so there's lift over drag ratio of about 17. That's the data we have for the TBM. It's about between 16 and 17. In clean without engine drag is the glide ratio when you, I would say at the glide speed, right? Because the elevator has some influence on that. So we checked that with that tool, displaying the drag. You can see when the input surfaces change, you can see the drag polar and the lift and drag polar basically changing because, so this tool here is a wind tunnel. We run the plane in a wind tunnel, we measure all different angles and everything, and we build that polar. So and it's a real-time wind tunnel applied to the real plane. So if you turn out, so for example here I'm putting out the flaps. When you put out the flaps, the polar completely changes, and you can see the lift over drag ratio is more around 6 or 7. But clean, yeah, it's 16 to 17. That's the data we've been building on.
Then connected to this was another question about the absence of propeller drag. Well, it's not absent, it's fully simulated. There is no such thing where you can say I want more propeller drag. It's a full simulation of the full engine, and the propeller drag is generated when it's windmilling. And when you are idle, the RPM is going up because you are going fast. For example, going idle and performing a dive. and the amount of drag that is generated depends on the internal engine friction and the whole mechanics between the propeller and the pistons, and as Sebastian is explaining, this is all simulated but it needs tweaking and they are on it, testing and adjusting the internal friction of the engine for particular airplanes, so there is no direct parameter at this moment. Sebastian also mentioned that if it's something needed by plane authors, they can add a scaler. Things to note is that once you change the friction, you need to retweak the whole engine. They started to do this on 3 planes so far, and they are testing a few more. Then a talk about the possibility to save different control sets for each of the airplanes we fly was a very good question in our opinion here at Hip Games. Also the possibility to export the control set files in order to back them up. And it is confirmed by Martial that this will be implemented, working on a refactorization of the controls, profiles and export-import in the sim. They cannot commit on a date, but it will come as soon as possible. Then a video feedback about the flight model realism sliders for allowing proper plane behavior for pilots and being also easy for casual players. Sebastian also continues saying that if there are specific requests to be added in the list for assists and realism, like adding turbulence control, they are listening and open to add more parameters in accordance with our needs. A question about localizer came, more precise, why are all of them aligned with the runway track, why there are no offset approaches and when can we expect them in the sim. I know from the patch notes in Sim Update 3 that there were some improvements on this. Of course, the issue with the offset approaches will still need to be addressed. Now Martial mentioned that they know they have some discrepancies between the runway data and the ILS data, and this is an ongoing situation and they intend to improve this in the next Sim updates. A question about the flight model. At the initial phase of turn, the aircrafts have an unrealistic tendency to climb, and only later to descend. In real small GA, it tends to turn to descend. From Sebastian's explanation, this is what you need to hear.
I agree with the feedback, and when I try in a real plane, so the only thing that happens is that it doesn't descend right away, at least in the DR format I fly. When I start my turn, it continues sort of level, and then all of a sudden it starts to descend. I sometimes have a tendency to pull the yoke too early and to go up, and so that's where the instructor says, no, you turn, and then you pull the yoke. You don't do the two at the same time. I tried this in the sim 3 or 4 times. I recorded one of them. I didn't get the plane to climb. I flew level. So it is not autopilot or anything. I just trimmed it to fly level, really steady, stable. So except maybe a little bit of turbulence. And I took the yoke. So I have this one here, and I went just left, and I didn't see any climbing at all. It just started falling, and then when it went down. So I didn't see this. If someone has more information, I can investigate, but I tried this 3 times.
Also was an interesting question asking for a nose wheel tiller axis to control independently from the rudder axis. But apparently that's already there. If we go into inputs and type steering, we should get an increased steering and decreased steering input so we can assign keys or axis there. Interesting enough, it wasn't mentioned in the patch notes, at least we didn't notice here in our monthly reading. Problems with a crosswind on takeoff and landings, more precise when you need to apply some ailerons in the wind to use adverse yaw as a force counteracting the tendency and turning into the wind. And people are having issues doing the wing low crosswind approach method with rudder pedals and a yoke. Well, Sebastian answered by saying that you must make sure you go into the assistance menu and take on the piloting with the hard option. If you don't do that, crosswind will be very small or non-existent. And here's more on this.
So this is the takeoff, so whether it's takeoff or landing, so there's another video, maybe you can show the landing, but it's sort of the same thing. If you don't do any rudder or aileron input, you will come in as a crab, right? Basically, because the wind is coming from one side. You have to go into this menu, right, and take the assistances and turn piloting to hard. If you don't do that, then crosswind is very, very small and even inexistent as soon as you're close to the ground. But if you do that, so here it's on takeoff, same thing, right? If I don't put some rudder, the plane is just gonna go sideways. If I pull some rudder, then I get some induced roll, and I have to counter the with the ailerons to just fly straight. Otherwise, the rudder is gonna make me turn.
Now about an immersion braking situation for IFR flights, which enables RMI and bearing pointers to give bearing towards localizer antennas, and they want to hear if it's just a bug or it comes as designed. Well, it's supposed to be a bug, but it was fixed in Sim Update 3. If it's still happening, they are waiting for our feedback on the forums. The weather radar seems to be more like a cloud radar rather than an actual weather radar, and if there are any improvements planned for it. The reason for this is that the cloud is rendering dynamically depending on the place where the plane is located, and in order to have the rain radar, they got to do a forecast on all the air in front of us. This has not been done yet, but it will come with the next improvement. A funny question about when will the DV20 fly again? So with the latest update, Sim Update 3, the DV20 should be okay. It seems it was broken before. The issue with a 10-degree alpha yoke is still not fixed at this time. And a question for Sebastian about some expected improvements to the right rudder takeoff to counter combined effects of torque or P-factor spiraling slipstream. This was his video presentation.
Stopped on the runway, which is starting right, going left.
Yes.
I think. Okay, so here what I'm basically doing. So again, assistance, piloting hard, and the plane was full brakes. I didn't do anything, hands off, all controls to neutral. I went full throttle, waited for the engine to be full power, and all I did is I released the brakes and the plane goes left. There was no crosswind, by the way, it was set to 0. Just to show that these are the effects we have. So in the file of the plane, and it's been simulated, you have P-factor, you have the torque, you have all the engine effects. So there's if you look at the plane here on the video, you can see the right side. Basically, it's sort of almost like a tornado. It's whirling around the plane, and it hits the surfaces at the back. So there's obviously a lot of turbulence, but you can see it's sort of going this way. And so it's pushing on the plane, making it roll. It's also pushing the rudder, so this creates a little bit of yaw. And so this is all simulated. It's in the file. It can be more or less strong. If in the assistances you're not on hard, it's off. So it's like you get the turbulences, but you don't get it pushing or any, I would say, yaw or roll effect. And so it's simulated. It's been tuned. The problem is there is no data for this. I mean, and so we can send people to actually collect, but it's more based on pilot feel. So we are, yeah, one of the people on the team is an instructor who has thousands of hours on the Cessna. It's been real tuned to his feeling.
So in conclusion, these are things that exist. They just have to refine the parameters and iterate over planes. And a pilot feedback is always welcome. Later in the show, they introduce Matt Nishan and Working Title, a group dedicated to make the most perfect sim. They are not strangers to the community, responsible for modding the CJ4 and the G1000, and because of their amazing skills, they are now officially part of the project. They will be working full-time on the platform, bringing their expertise that they have as pilots and developers, improving many aspects of the sim. Now on with the questions. One of the most important one for Working Title was if we should expect a realistic study-level Garmin package from them. So they want to bring what they worked before on the Garmin system to the platform, at the moment with no time frame for when that would happen. But their goal is to bring those systems to a high level, not specifying exactly how high will that be. It's an open discussion, but based on what we've seen from their work before, this will be a great improvement for the default system. Second question was plain and simple, and it was VNAV. So all the things they built around VNAV before are planned to be ported to the Garmin and continue to work on, maybe even working on other aircrafts for the sim. They talk about charts in the Garmin systems. The defiant statement is that they want to bring everything they worked before into the default sim for everybody to enjoy, and that's everybody's goal. Moving on with World Update 4, which is a few weeks away, coming with France, Belgium, Netherlands and Luxembourg, getting new DEM and new aerials. Many airports, all of them from Gaia, so great quality airports to be expected. And upon all of that, they are working with Orbex to fix other airports with over 100 being adjusted. And then Jörg Newman kind of teased an aircraft. I will let you judge that.
Awesome. I actually wrote it down. Aircraft is what I wrote down. We might say something. I don't know yet, but so I'm teasing. Here's a tease. We might say something about an airplane here when we launch. It's not ready, but it's a sort of an announcement maybe. So look forward to that.
Back to the World Update. It will include a bush trip, a landing challenge, photogrammetry same as in the UK update with a very good source for Paris, that looks great, and Amsterdam. Can I get a yay for Amsterdam?
Waar is het feestje? Hier is het feestje.
Okay, you didn't hear that. Then points of interest, over 100 of them, and they showed us a quick video, an early look at this. Then I mentioned that Black Shark is working on new procedural buildings with appropriate churches, and yay for windmills in Holland.
Yay!
Okay, and glass houses. And glass houses, and a great idea, they are bringing with the next World Update a translation in Japanese and Dutch for the sim. And they will continue to do that for the future updates, expanding the languages and so expanding the access to this amazing product to all ages. Moving on, they talked about the feedback snapshot, explaining a bit on how everything is being shown to us, trying to have that transparency but not write books over books of information. Some improvements may take a long time, even if they are shown as started. Some are ongoing with different steps in each released update, like we saw in Sim Update 3 with the Garmin system. But they are trying to improve the format of the feedback snapshot to be even more clear so everybody will know more precisely what are they trying to do. And when you look forward for a Sim update or World update, you will know what you will get. At least, that's the plan. Moving on, the Bing team is working on something that will impact in a very good way the photogrammetry side later this year. Still on photogrammetry, they are working on London. More precise, Blue Skies are looking into a problem making some areas of the city look a bit weird. And later on, the city will get revisited and also adjusted with a performance stability pass, removing many unwanted vertices in the scene. Now about the mirror livery texture problem is just something to do with a different evolved system, and they will probably make a video of the SDK team or the Asobo art team to explain it. We wait to see that. Then in the end, Jorg Newman talked about the G4E, their No Pilot Left Behind project to help people with different disabilities enjoy the sim, and encouraging you to write them about any issues, accessibility requests, help or ideas, and feedback at fsfsim@microsoft.com. In the end, it took more chat questions. The first one to pop out was the performance issue with the latest patch. It's all to do with different type of hardware that users have. They are investigating all of this. As well as talked before in the previous Q&A episodes, they are doing great improvements for performance, making space on PC, focusing on lossless optimization, rewriting systems in a more efficient way. Of course, there is a lot of room for improvements to the sim when it comes to performance, and apparently they already have a separate branch version that is worthy of celebration, according to Jorg Newman. And they also keep in mind that not everybody will upgrade their systems in the next few years, so they are trying to free up space, power and memory as they keep on introducing new world updates. With better photogrammetry, it's something we need and it's getting integrated slowly as time goes by. They are also thinking about a hotfix for performance in the near future, after they monitor the situation a bit further, and also another idea is to do a beta before a sim update. Then another question was addressed about the quality control on releases. Having so many branches being worked at the same time, and right now having also the Xbox branch, they will expand the team with more specific testing on specific things. And almost the last question was about the 80s reporting that will be fixed with a refactoring of the weather system. And that's it. The CRJ is almost here, so everybody grab your checklists. We covered the airplane on our previous On The Spot show. Thank you all for watching. Remember to hit the like button as it helps the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe for more On The Spot news on your favorite simulators and games. I am Andre Celesti, reminding you to fly safe, and I'll see you next time.